Happy fall, y'all! It's fall, y'all! Autumnal greetings. No, wait, that sounds weird when I say it like that. Hey crafters, it's officially fall, and so to celebrate, I have a very confusing riddle for you. What do this rope, this random mesh, this balloon, these magnets, this flower, this jar, this container of Mod Podge, and a kitty litter bucket that's not filled with kitty litter but is filled with pine cones, what do these all have in common? The answer? These 50 fake maple leaves from the dollar store. If you're saying, huh, after hearing that, that's okay, I probably would be too. But if you already saw the title of this video, you know where I'm leading with this. And what these all have in common is I am going to be DIYing some crafts and decorations based around these fake leaves from the dollar store. Super nice because they're only $1. I got 50 of them in here. These came from my local Dollar Tree. So I've already torn the top open, but I haven't actually like pulled them out, so. It's fun! We're going to take these leaves and work through 5 different projects with them. All right, let's go. So our first project is going to be making a Mod Podge bowl. So to start, inflate your balloon to the size you want the bowl to be. This is going to determine how curved or flat the bowl is. I just want to make a nice shallow dish. And you can see here I'm setting it on a roll of tape so that way the balloon stays standing. So I grabbed out my Mod Podge, and just like you do normally with Mod Podge, you're going to coat your material with the Mod Podge before placing it on your frame. So in this case, what I found out is it worked best if I just got my fingers dirty with the Mod Podge and rubbed it on. That seemed to work pretty well. Also, some of my leaves were more mesh, whereas some were more plasticky. The mesh ones worked a lot better in making the bowl because they absorbed the Mod Podge, whereas the plasticky ones, I had a harder time getting them to lay flat. So if your leaf doesn't want to lay flat, maybe try turning it over where it curves more naturally. So I'm going to finish putting these leaves on here, just arranging them as big as I want it to go, and then I'll let this dry, of course. Here's what it looks like now that it's dry, and I'm going to be really careful when cutting the balloon because as you'll see, when it starts deflating, it's going to kind of stick to it, and I don't want to pop it because the force of that might cause things to come loose. So I just gently deflated the balloon. Also, I had some kind of a film from the Mod Podge where the Mod Podge was more on the balloon than on the bowl, so I just cleaned that off a little bit to make it work. Also, a quick shout out to EB. She participated in last week's question on my video, and she says that her favorite animals are cats. So thanks so much for the comment, and if you want your chance at a shout out, don't forget to watch last week's Tutorial Tuesday. This second project is probably the easiest. I'm going to be making some magnets. So I have this nice roll of magnets here, and what's nice about this is one side is sticky. So I'm just going to cut out magnets that are big enough to support the weight of my leaves and then just stick them right on there. I love this because it's so simple, and some of these leaves are so cute that you want to display them, but it takes hardly any time or additional materials, and it still ends up looking super cute and brings that fall aspect to your kitchen or whiteboard. Our third project is again a very simple one, but this one does take a few more items. I just got this jar that had some gray poupon mustard in it, and I cleaned it out, and I'm just sticking some leaves inside there to kind of act as filler in my flower vase. So then I've got my little flowers that I'm putting in there, and I'm going to arrange those how I want them to look. And then I'm just going to keep tucking leaves in there, trying to keep them kind of flat so that way you can see them really well through the jar. But it's a nice way to fill a vase and keep the fall theme. Here's a fun one. We call it fall because that's the time of year when the leaves fall. So to do this, I'm going to start by taking my rope, and basically what I'm doing is I'm cutting out a section and then I'm unraveling it so I get to the smallest component of the rope possible, kind of like I did in my seashell wind chimes. So here I'm showing you one way that you can do this. You can place the leaves along it, or like I'm going to do in the video, you can put the leaves at the end of your rope. So I just got a little bit of super glue, and see how the end here is frayed? The super glue is not going to hold super well to that, so I'm just going to trim off the frayed edges. And then just put a little super glue on your rope and on your leaf. I used liquid super glue, and liquid super glue didn't work as well with some of the mesh leaves, so I would recommend trying to use a gel super glue if you have a bunch of leaves that are more mesh and kind of fabric versus being plasticky. So I'm going to get a bunch of these glued together, all different lengths, and then just hang them from a curtain rod or from a window. Our fifth and final project is the most involved, but it's also my most favorite. This is what it's going to look like. You can see the pine cones there. So I'm taking one of my sections of rope from earlier, and I also have this roll of mesh. You could use burlap, you could use mesh, you could use bandanas, just some kind of material or fabric that you can cut up into ribbons. So I'm cutting out this long strip, and then I'm going to cut each of these long pieces into smaller strips. So just make sure that the section you cut is wide enough so you'll be able to tie knots in the pieces. So here you can see I'm stacking them up, and I'm going to cut these strips out of them. And these strips I'm going to use to tie onto the rope. So you can cut them varying widths, or if you want a more consistent look, you can try to cut them all different sizes. I cut mine varying widths just to give it a little more texture and personality. So I'm going to grab my pine cones. For my first one I used 3, so I'm going to put 3 on this one also because I'm going to be hanging them out my front door. So with my first pine cone, I'm going to just tie the rope around it. And this is actually pretty simple if your pine cone is kind of open. Just kind of tuck the rope down in there, tighten it with a knot. You can do a second knot if you want, or you can just do one knot like I did. And then I just kind of tuck that tail end down in there. So now it's time to grab my strips of my mesh, and I'm just going to tie these on with a simple overhand knot. And I'm going to, as I slide them down the rope, I'm going to turn them different ways so that way all the knots and tails from the knots aren't all facing the same way. This will just help it look a little more full. Now because I'm putting these both on either side of my front door, I want to make sure that they're pretty similar looking. So I just make sure that I have the same distance between pine cones. So what I'm going to do next is start adding on some leaves. So what I'm doing is I've got a needle, and I'm just grabbing a piece from the mesh. You can just use normal sewing thread, or you could use embroidery floss or string, whatever you have on hand. I just grab some of the material from the mesh because then it's going to blend in really well. So I'm going to use my needle and run a piece of my string through the bottom of a leaf, and then I'm literally just going to tie this on. And this part can be a little bit tricky because of all the mesh already tied on there, but just get it secured on there, and you can add as many leaves as you want or as few leaves as you want. And once I'm done with my first section of getting leaves on, I'm going to add the next pine cone. And when I add the pine cone, I want to tie it pretty close to where I have my mesh. The nice thing is I can slide those strips of knotted mesh up and down to kind of fill in the gaps, or I could always go back and add more. But I'm just going to try to position that pine cone right next to that section of mesh. So get that tied on there again, just really tuck in the rope to the pine cone so that way it stays nice and secure. And then once I've done that, I'm going to repeat the process above it by adding on more pieces of mesh and more leaves, and now I have 2 of these completed. So as I said, I'm going to hang these outside my front door. This is a great way to bring some fall to your outdoor decor, or you could bring it inside and hang it from a mantle or from a light fixture, wherever you think it would go well in your place. And these are today's 5 crafts.
There you have it. That's 5 DIYs using fake leaves from the dollar store. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you give it a big thumbs up, and also make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already. I'm so excited to have hit the 1,000 subscribers mark. Y'all are awesome. Keep it up and have a great week. Happy crafting. Just for fun, because I have a bunch of these left over and I've got my balloon pump still here, we're gonna see what happens if we set one of these on top of here and then just give it like a big pump of air. We'll see how far it goes. Hey! This is actually kind of fun. So that's another idea. If you're bored and you have no life, you can use a balloon pump to launch the leaves around your room.